Hello and welcome to another Aston Originals podcast from Aston History. I am Brian Sudlow, lecturer in history at Aston University. I'm joined again by Mr. John Dyson from Broadway Academy, head of history, Broadway Academy, author also of two best-selling books on the history of Sheffield United. It was Sheffield United, wasn't it, John? Oh no, it's Sheffield Wednesday.
The other one, Sheffield Wednesday.
Oh dear, oh, heavens above. Sorry about that. John, how are you? You okay?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, no bad at all.
Fantastic. So, right. So this video is for anyone who's going to do their A-level exam in history in the spring, in the summer. And if you've not already watched Mr. Dyson's tips on doing a history exam, then you can check that video out too. But in this video, we're going to talk specifically about knowledge and analysis, because it's true, isn't it? History teachers often say, don't tell the story, don't just list a load of facts. Where's the argument? What do you think is the problem with knowledge in the history exam, Mr. Dyson?
I think that the problem is almost sometimes A-level students have too much of it. Knowledge that is. They work really hard for 2 years. It's very rare you find a student who doesn't know very much. And it's comfortable to come back into that knowledge and write all about it. It's less comfortable sometimes making that one step further forward and answering a direct question.
Yeah. And I suppose that's why students can get drawn into that sense of, let's write down everything I know about this topic. Okay, so I mean that's the trick. Of course, knowledge is vital, isn't it? And knowledge can be vital to bring in nuance to arguments and things like this. But what about getting into the analysis? How can a student who's in the history exam, how can they get into that analytical mode and then use the knowledge that they've got in the right way?
Well, I think the answer to that is to try and lead with the argument and be brave. It's a little bit difficult if you're 18 years old, I guess, or thereabouts, doing your A-levels, to think, I'm the historian in this circumstance, in this exam, and the examiner wants to hear my argument. And so it's understanding that history as a subject is one that is full of debate and discussion, and that as an 18-year-old A-level student, the examiners want to hear your views on whatever they've asked you about.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems to me as well that in a way, the difference between an argument and, let's say, a piece of knowledge is that the argument answers directly the terms of the question, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I've got a metaphor which isn't mine, but I shared it with my students, which is the essay, the A-level essay is almost as if the student's been a barrister in a courtroom, defending or prosecuting their claim. And to the first half of what a barrister will do is give all the good reasons why their client is innocent or guilty of a particular crime, back it up with lots of evidence about why they weren't there, or they've got a good alibi, whatever it might be. But they won't then say, on the other hand, my client might be guilty for X, Y, and Z reasons. But they won't ignore those X, Y, and Z reasons either. They'll come back and say, some people might say that there are reasons why my client is guilty, but here is my evidence to suggest that that's not so clear-cut. So the barrister makes an argument, accepts that there's a counter-argument, and comes back at the end and says that his or her client is innocent or guilty. And it's a little bit like that with the history essay.
So in other words, what's key there is the ability to show not only your perspective on the question as you think it should be answered, but also to appreciate that there could be alternative perspectives, but then showing actually why those alternative perspectives are insufficient explanations of what actually happened.
Yeah, and that's a great way of putting it, because you're not saying that those alternative perspectives are completely wrong, for example, or impossible to happen. You're saying they're less good, I suppose, explanations than the one that you've put forward.
Okay. So in other words, actually doing analysis is, it's about, I'm going back now to your advice in the first video, answer the flipping question. And answer the question, but then use the knowledge to show why your answer is the valid answer, and alternative answers, even if they've got a certain truth about them, in actual fact, are inadequate for explaining. I mean, that's important, isn't it, as well, to come to a judgment, to come to a firm position.
Absolutely is, yeah. And I advise my students to start with that judgment and start with that firm position and go straight in the first sentence. If it asks them to assess the validity of the view that Tony Blair had a terrible foreign policy, they can start with that in the first sentence.
Okay, so really, it's they've got to be bold, but then smart about how they then demonstrate that.
Yeah, both those things. I think bold, brave, knowledgeable as well. So we're not disparaging knowledge here. They need some knowledge to back it up. And another one of my cliches is that anyone can have an opinion. The moon's made of cheese is an opinion, but without any evidence, it's worthless. Yeah. So they need some knowledge. They need some evidence to back it up. But yeah, certainly be bold and brave and reach that judgment.
Understood. I often tell my students as well, because I think these things apply at university level just as they do at A level, that one of the best ways to keep on track is to make sure that the terms of the question or synonyms for the terms of the question, whatever that might be, are picked up in the first and last sentence of a paragraph. It's almost just like that little sort of micro adjustment just to make sure the student is staying directly on that road towards answering the flipping question. John, before we finish.
Well, I was going to say, I'm sure that's very true. History teachers around the country will no doubt have ways of structuring their paragraphs that point, evidence, explain, and link is a fairly common one. There's lots of other ones, and they're all designed to do that thing that you've just mentioned. Start with your point, come back at the end.
Come back at the end. Fantastic. Great. So, well, look, we wish all the best to anyone who's watching this. Who's going to do their history A-level exam later this year. And come back anytime to the Aston Originals channel, and you'll always find lots of content here about history. Mr. Dyson, thank you very much indeed. It's good to see you, and we'll see you again soon.